did you say, quote, racist white Southerners, close quote, and, quote, hostile white voters and governmental officials in Louisiana continue to make local polling places and early voting locations threatening spaces for black voters? Did you say that?
Senator, I do not believe that I said that. I haven't read that publication in some time.
Will you help write it?
I helped to draft the publication and approved it, but I'm not familiar with that language.
You don't? Okay. In that same report, did you say, well, tell me where in Louisiana local polling places and early voting locations are threatening African-American voters?
Welcome back to Congress Lens. I'm Audrey. You just saw a tense moment from a hearing at the United States Senate Judiciary Committee where Senator John Kennedy questioned judicial nominee Nancy Abudu. In my view, this exchange shows why confirmation hearings are so important. A federal appeals court judge holds a lifetime position and has enormous influence over how the Constitution is interpreted. Senators have a duty to make sure nominees are prepared for that responsibility. Senator John Kennedy came in with direct questions about constitutional law, and the answers quickly turned into a heated exchange about legal knowledge and past statements. So the big question is simple. Did Nancy Abudu show the level of readiness expected for a federal circuit judge? We are going to break it all down. Before we continue, like the video, subscribe to Congress Lens, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our reactions to the biggest moments happening in Congress. Now let's get into the full exchange.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge, Ms. Abudu, congratulations. I want to just talk to you, at least initially, a little bit about the law. Ms. Abudu, what's the adequate and independent state grounds doctrine?
Thank you, Senator Kennedy.
You're welcome.
In my practice, I actually haven't had an opportunity to use that principle or doctrine, but my general understanding is that it speaks to the fact that if a federal court is able to resolve an issue based on state law grounds, then that is what should lead in terms of the court's ultimate decision.
Okay. What is the selective incorporation doctrine?
That also, in the voting rights or civil rights context, is a term that I haven't had to come across. But what I do know is that as a legal research and writer, and for sure confronting possibly new areas of law, I look very forward to doing my due diligence in terms of making sure I'm familiar with doctrines such as that one.
Do you know what it is?
So no, I'm not familiar with it sitting here
Selective
today.
incorporation doctrine? Okay. Well, you're going to see a lot of it if you're confirmed on the 11th Circuit. Can Congress pass any law that the Constitution doesn't prohibit?
Based on the frame of your question, I would say yes, that sounds right.
So you think Congress has plenary power?
Well, I would first look to what the Supreme Court has said in terms of following precedent.
No, but I'm interested, if I could, Counselor, in your opinion, does the United States Congress have delegated powers or plenary power?
Well, the Congress has both, I would say, from my general understanding. Again, it depends on the context and the issue, but it is.
Can you explain the difference to me between strict scrutiny and intermediate scrutiny?
Senator, strict scrutiny is the highest level of scrutiny that's often applied in constitutional cases.
What's the definition? I'm sorry, go ahead. Excuse me.
So it requires that a state, when enacting a law or regulation, have a compelling governmental interest for doing so, and that the law is narrowly tailored to achieve that interest.
Okay.
And then intermediate, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so intermediate speaks to the issue of having a substantial interest or an important governmental interest that is substantially related.
Okay. Do you believe that the meaning of the Constitution is immutable, or does it change over time?
Senator, I would say that the Supreme Court in some cases has analyzed that issue, and the response really does depend on the context and the issue. But what the court does or has done in its approach, of course, is look to the plain meaning of a statute or of the Constitution, because that really is where the inquiry should start. And if the language is plain, then that is where the inquiry can end.
Okay, thank you for that. You were involved in a 2021 report from the Southern Poverty Law Center about voting in Louisiana. Did you say, quote, racist white Southerners, close quote, and, quote, hostile white voters and governmental officials in Louisiana continue to make local polling places and early voting locations threatening spaces for black voters? Did you say that?
Senator, I do not believe that I said that. I haven't read that publication in some time.
Will you help write it?
I helped to draft the publication and approved it, but I'm not familiar with that
Oh,
language.
you don't? Okay. In that same report, did you say, well, tell me where in Louisiana local polling places and early voting locations are threatening African-American voters? You said it, so which polling places?
So again, Senator, obviously I don't have that report in front of me to be able to read and remind myself of the examples that might have been shared. But what I can say is that Louisiana...
Let me cut you off because I'm going to run out of time, Counselor. Let me ask you one more. In August 2021, we're not talking 20 years ago, we're talking 2021, you were involved in another report by the SPLC. And you said that voter identification, photo ID to vote, is burdensome and does not serve any legitimate state interest. Do you really believe that?
Senator, identification for voting is something...
Yes, but first, do you really believe that? You said it. You meant it?
The Supreme Court in Crawford v. Marion County has already upheld voter ID laws as per se
Yeah, but you said it didn't serve any legitimate state interest. Do you believe that?
Again, Senator, without that language in front of me, it's hard to understand the context.
You said it. Here it is, August 2021.
Well, there are cases...
I'm just asking you to explain to me why having to prove you are who you say you are before you vote doesn't serve, you said it doesn't serve any legitimate state interest. I'm just asking you to explain that statement to me.
I understand, Senator Kennedy, and again, without being able to see the language that appears before and after, it's hard for the context.
You deny that you said it?
I can't say that I haven't seen that language in front of me, but what I do know is that there have been voter ID cases in which courts have found that
I know, I'm familiar with the case law, but I'm asking what you think, because you may be on the 11th Circuit. Do you believe that voter ID is inappropriate?
My commitment is to uphold the Supreme Court's decision in Crawford v. Marion County.
I know, but here you said it was inappropriate. You deny that?
Well, again, Senator, it would be helpful to know if that section of the report also cites to cases in which federal courts have found that certain voter ID laws do pose an burden on voters.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Senator Booker?
I'm going to yield to Senator Whitehouse, who's more seniority.
Senator Whitehouse more senior than Senator Booker.
And more hair.
Now, that's no reason to yield.
That's a big group, Senator Booker.
Let's test them in the 40, though, and see who wins.
It's kind of a clean sweep of the committee, so to speak.
All right, now that we've watched the full clip, a few things stand out. First, Senator John Kennedy approached this hearing exactly the way a confirmation hearing should work. A judge on the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals will handle major constitutional cases that affect millions of people. That means nominees should have a strong command of core legal principles. When Senator Kennedy asked about doctrines like selective incorporation and adequate and independent state grounds, those are not obscure questions. They are basic concepts in constitutional law. So when Nancy Abudu said those doctrines were unfamiliar, that raised some real concerns. These ideas shape how federal courts interpret the Constitution and interact with state law. To Nancy Abudu's credit, the explanation of strict scrutiny and intermediate scrutiny was solid. That showed an understanding of how courts review laws under the Constitution. But the hearing then moved into an even more controversial topic. Senator Kennedy brought up a 2021 report connected to the Southern Poverty Law Center that included language about racist white Southerners and described certain voting environments as threatening for black voters. Since Nancy Abudu helped draft the report, Senator Kennedy asked where those claims were specifically happening. Nancy Abudu responded by saying the exact wording was not remembered. Considering the report was written only a few years ago, that response did not answer the question clearly. Then the discussion shifted to voter ID laws. Senator Kennedy pointed to the Supreme Court decision in Crawford v. Marion County Election Board, which upheld voter ID requirements. Yet the report Nancy Abudu worked on reportedly said voter ID laws serve no legitimate state interest. That is a strong claim, and Senator Kennedy wanted an explanation. Instead of directly defending the statement, Nancy Abudu focused on context and court precedent. The answer never fully addressed the claim. From my perspective, Senator John Kennedy was doing exactly what senators are supposed to do. A lifetime judicial appointment requires deep legal knowledge and consistency when it comes to constitutional interpretation. Testing a nominee with tough questions is part of the process. It helps determine whether the person is truly ready for the role. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Senator John Kennedy asked fair questions in this hearing? Or do you think the exchange went too far? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more reactions and breakdowns of major moments from Capitol Hill, subscribe to Congress Lens. I'm Audrey, and I'll see you in the next video.